Have you ever wondered what your city would look like if you never placed an expansion? I'm UberNerd14, and this is the story of my tiny town. Before I get to my tiny town, though, I have to explain how I learned about them in the first place. On the US forums, there's a thread that was started in 2016 about towns that stayed within the original 16 by 16 expansion grid for the city, and tried to push as high as possible in terms of ages. I stumbled upon this thread towards the end of 2018 and was intrigued by the challenge. Without expansions, one would have to be extremely careful with space utilization, and usually simple activities in games, such as just moving up in age, could become quite difficult. Despite these challenges, however, a handful of players have managed to reach incredibly high ages. The highest age tiny town that I know of is currently run by a player named Praetorius, and that one is currently in the space age Venus. I just knew I had to get my own tiny town started. So, in January of 2019, I did just that. With 256 tiles to build on, no long-term plan, and a dream to reach higher ages, I started anew into the game. First starting out, the challenge of limited space honestly did not feel too hard. You don't normally have many expansions anyways, and earlier age buildings are pretty small. You don't have access to any powerful great buildings, for example. However, from the beginning I had problems with producing enough supplies, and as time would tell, that would always be a problem. As I progressed through, I began to play more events and slowly gather event buildings and level great buildings. These gave massive bonuses to my tiny town that helped with efficiency in the space that I'm limited to. As of April 2019, or 3 months into the city, I had many great buildings, including the Tower of Babel, Oracle of Delphi, Statue of Zeus, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria. However, there was a problem. The Tower of Babel provided much needed goods for my tiny town, but it also provided way too much population for my city. With such a small space to work with, it was difficult to find ways to keep the population enthusiastic, hence why I still kept the Oracle of Delphi around, for its happiness boost. That is nearly a tenth of my available space spent mostly on population and the happiness to deal with that population, with a small amount of goods and supplies daily. Also around this point, I was still building barracks in my city to fight through the guild expeditions, hoping that the costs to train my troops would be recouped through the encounter rewards. Regardless, I continued to prioritize supplies and goods in my city, placing down the water pagoda to increase both of those, and all of this while still in the Iron Age. It was around this point that I decided to try something different out. My tiny town was producing plenty of forge points, but it was hard to find prints for the great buildings that I wanted to level. While the statue of Zeus is common enough, the Lighthouse of Alexandria was scarce, and I needed those prints to try and increase my supply production. I figured that the solution to all of my problems was the Ark. It would allow me to get more prints and take more spots on great buildings with my limited forge point bank in my inventory. Also, I was hoping to be able to snipe my neighborhood to increase my forge point production and possibly use the forge points to buy goods to progress faster. 8 months into my tiny town's tale, I placed down my Ark. Now, I had a whopping 5 great buildings in my city. The summer event had just ended, so I was able to place down a crow's nest to gain even more forge points and goods, with a small chance of diamonds. I also just really liked the layout of my town at this point. By September, I had only done some small reorganizations to make my city better. However, by November, something insane happened. I deleted my Ark on purpose. The problem with it was that I actually couldn't produce enough forge points daily to make my gains from the snipes worth the massive footprint of the Ark. I also swapped my crow's nest for an abandoned asylum, added an aqueous mill, cider mills, and even more barracks. My goal around here was to try and get rid of the Tower of Babel. I loved the goods that it provided, but the population was just a monster to try and deal with. By January of 2020, I was still in Iron Age. I wanted to try and build up my city as much as possible in the Iron Age because the buildings were still small, fighting was easy, and quest requirements were low. I also added 3 sleigh builders though, giving me an extra 45 goods per day. The next update took me until August of 2020, by now over 20 months into this project. I finally moved up to the early Middle Ages, and I now re-added the crow's nest along with the governor's villa. While the governor's villa is big, the ability for it to produce units along with goods and forge points made it an automatic addition to my city. At this point my attack boost was 66 attack and 45 defense, and I produced 32 forge points, 210 goods, and 4 units per day. My Zeus was level 15, and my Lighthouse was level 12. I'll only be tracking these 2 great buildings levels from here on out for reasons that you'll see soon. By December of 2020, the winter event was in full force. I got myself a charcoal express and a Lusa bakery, as well as the House of the Clown from the 2020 Halloween event. I don't know my exact attack boosts at this point, but by my estimate it was roughly 86 attack and 47 defense, and I produced 38 forge points, at least 210 goods, and still the 4 units per day. I also decided to finally remove the Tower of Babel and Oracle of Delphi because I didn't need them any longer. In April of 2021, 27 months from the start of my tiny town, I reached the late Middle Ages. After the 2021 spring event, I reshuffled my town's layout and added in the vineyard and Suetian mill, which enabled me to total an incredible 273% supply boost, including that for my level 20 lighthouse. I also had a level 17 Zeus and produced 50 forge points. My total goods production dropped to 208 goods, but the improved supply boost was a better use of space anyways. However, with all of these event buildings down, I began to have to move slower and use events to get renovation or one-up kits. In June, I reached the Colonial Age. My supply boost reached a staggering 325%, and my attack was now 87 attack and 54 defense. With the addition of the Moose Mountain, I produced 60 forge points and 258 goods per day. My Zeus was level 17 and the Lighthouse 23. However, while not noticeable at first glance, my city was extremely imbalanced. While I had that insanely high supply boost, the only buildings that actually produced supplies in my tiny town were the Suetian Mill, Train, and Altar Gardens. This made it difficult to progress on the tech tree or to place buildings of my age for events because of this limitation. In October of 2021, I finalized the layout of what I basically have now with some minor changes. I had to remove many buildings but managed to fit in the Golden Crops to get help towards aging up, and a level 5 art exhibition. The exhibition was taking forever to level, but the supplies were a boon for my city. And because I completed so many events, but found only a few of those buildings useful, I was able to keep the antique dealer fed to build a large supply of trade coins to win auctions when those exhibition kits appeared. My supply boost continued to climb higher at 378%, with a level 25 lighthouse and a Zeus at 18. However, my overall attack boost fell to 75 attack and 38 defense, and I only produced 251 goods per day. My forge points per day continued to grow, and now I collected 73 per day. I decided that I liked this layout and I wanted to keep it for as long as possible and focus purely on upgrading great buildings and moving through the tech tree. However, I still wanted to be able to participate in events, so what I had to do was store a sleigh builder and the art exhibition temporarily for each event to have enough space to place down all the buildings I'd need for event quest lines. This was annoying as I'd often have blacksmiths sitting where better buildings could go, but I had to keep completing the events even if I didn't want the rewards. I needed to make sure I always got the event box to get a fully leveled event building from future events if I so chose to. However, with this current summer event being the end of the event boxes, I have restored my city back to the normal layout. The constant need to have space for completing event quests also stunted my supply production, so hopefully this should help me progress through the ages even faster now. Present day, at the beginning of September, or about 44 months, or almost 4 years into this city, I've reached the modern era. My art exhibition is now fully leveled, and I have a 90 attack and 50 defense attack boost. My Zeus is currently at level 24, going on 25, and my Lighthouse is level 44, which, combined with the boost from my buildings, lets me reach a staggering 484% supply boost. However, even with this high of a boost, supplies are still a struggle, and my coin supply is massive compared to my supplies. I produce 79 forge points daily, 244 goods of my age, and 106 unrefined goods. Also, even though it's really hard to see, I have a Knight's Pavilion placed behind my town hall that helps me produce up to 6 units per day. So what is my current plan for my tiny town? I'm going to just keep moving up in age as fast as I'm able to, and I'll keep you all updated as I do. If you want to explore some of the other player cities who are working on tiny towns, I'll link the forum thread about them in the description down below. If you want to try a new way to play the game and you want to help me with my tiny town or start one of your own, check out the Recite link in the description where you can play on one of the same worlds as me. This has definitely been a different, much longer style of video from what I normally do, so what did you think? If you want to see more longer content like this, please leave a like. If you can think of any other interesting ways to play the game that you'd like to see me explore, please leave a comment on them down below. And as always, if you really enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you subscribing. See you next time.